This is not a guitar pedal. Okay, it is a guitar pedal, but really it's a time machine, a vibe machine as the Zoomers would say. Let's watch as I explore the vast world of the Strymon Deco.
But I can't help this feeling that I gotta move on. No, I can't stop now.
Strymon Deco. What does it do, you might ask? Saturation, compression, chorus, doubler, delay, in stereo. Some people say this is an always-on pedal, and after using this for like a month, I'm in that same camp as well. Back in the day, the original guy that kind of pioneered all this double tracking, automatic double tracking, he called it, Ken Townsend, okay? He was an engineer at Abbey Road, mix engineer, and it was a legendary, visionary, and he used and manipulated the track heads to create the effects that we now all use today. To create saturation, to create compression, to create flanging, chorus, doublers. I mean, like all the things that we use are because this guy was messing with these playheads, and that's what this pedal is. And that's why it's cool, because it's not a distortion pedal. It's not a chorus pedal. It's not those effects. It is the father of those effects. It is the progenitor of those effects. And that's what I think makes it cool. And that's why it's so unique. And that's why you'll hear the tone that comes out of this is unlike any other tone you would normally see out there, right? It's not a fuzz. It's not like a tube screamer, right? And I love those things. And if you've been watching this channel for any amount of time, for any meaningful amount of time, you will know that the big thing that I love is finding a unique tone for you, for me, for whoever, right? But mostly for me, because I'm focused on me here, right?
Oops.
This is the clean sound straight into my Fender Blues Jr., and magically the reverb tank started working again. This is the classic voice tape saturation. Right now I'm on the single coil neck on my PRS Custom 24 S2, and this is like a great tool for boosting a single coil. This is the cassette style saturation. So it adds a lot more grit, a lot more low end, compresses it a lot more. You can really hear the. This is where it starts to get confusing. There's so many things that it adds that can really be placed and normally would be placed all over the chain, right? Like you would want compression usually at the beginning of your signal. You would want overdrive at the beginning of your signal, but then you switch to the other side. And these are all effects you would have after the signal, right? And yet it's only one pedal. So you gotta kind of pick and choose where you want these things to go. So as you can see, all of those channels kind of have a different phase relationship with what the blended signal in is, right? Now, we don't have it in stereo right now. I'm going to put it in stereo in a second. But that's where the bounced, the final, the lower setting at the bottom here, that's where that really starts to shine. You get these like crazy wide swirls, and we'll get into that in just a moment. Right now I'm going into a Blues Junior, so it doesn't make sense. When I'm doing my Iridium, we're going to do it stereo. once you get past 12 o'clock on lag time, you actually start to get a chorus. It shifts from flanger into chorus, and that's where you get a beautiful chorus sound too. And as you keep shifting through the chorus, the signal becomes so much further away that it actually like morphs from chorus into a slapback. All the way onto a full slapback here. Right? And so that's where you probably want to pull the blend back a bit. Right? And it's a great slapback echo. And all the way up on lag time, now it's a legit delay. And when you go to the bounce, it's the original signal, and then you get the bounce signal from that. So. You're starting to see like how vast this is, like, and that's just like really scratching the surface on the tones. We're not even combining any tones here. One other cool thing is on the inverse, when you have slapback on inverse, it legit sounds like you're in a room. This pedal can do so many things. It almost kind of like freezes you and you're like, well, wait a second. If it can do everything, like, what should I do? It's called analysis paralysis. Here you go. All the tools we have as guitarists, all the tools that we have as musicians, none of them are worthwhile unless you have an idea. The idea that you have in your head that you want other people to hear is what's important. And this is a tool that can get you certain sounds. Now, I will say this, it's a very specific sound that this will give you, right? It is 70s great classic rock sounds, and you can mess with it to give it, you know, to put it in modern era through your arrangements, but it will still be that tape saturation sound. Luckily for most guitarists, that's like kind of where they want to live, right? Every guitarist wished they were recording in 1978. And then lastly, the wobble knob. The wobble knob gives it this like, well, a wobble, right? It alters the signal, it detunes, it pushes it forward, pulls it back randomly in a very cool way. So an easy way to hear what it sounds like is put the blend all the way up, and then this is, you're only hearing the affected signal, not your dry signal. Right, like very much cool vintage sounds there. Let's go to that flanger because I want to show you how good this flanger is. This is like, it's one of the best flangers. So this is with the OCD in front of Blues Junior. And now we add a little saturation here, just a little bit on the classic setting, and then we add the flange. Sean from Edge of Breakup agrees. That's the best sounding vintage flanger sound I've heard in a long time. Now let's move on to the chorus real quick. I just want to show you how I like to use this chorus. You throw a compressor in front of it. Very interesting sounding chorus, right? It's not like your normal chorus, and you don't get the normal flavors that you get from that, which is why it's cool. And that's in a situation, so like if you're mixing or you're writing, that's where the sum, inverse, and bounce, you got to figure out which works best for you. They're all different kind of aspects. They will all affect the phase relationship differently, and consequently will affect the EQ of what's coming out, right? But where I like it a lot is actually after a distortion. So this is after the OCD. Like, that's so cool now. And if that's too much, just dial it back a little bit, right? You can have a subtle effect, and it's... Right? Oh man, it's so cool. It's like really, it's so cool. And I've been playing this thing, well, clearly for like over a month, trying to figure out like, okay, like what do I like? There's so many things about this pedal that I like, but that's one of them, man. Putting it after an overdrive as the last thing in your chain. Now, another kind of weird thing and fun thing you can do is do a reverb going into it, because it gives your reverb, it's like saturating and compressing your reverb. And so that long tail of that reverb is now being compressed and distorted. It's very cool when you hold out a note too. Now, if you really want to get weird, delay, bounce, post reverb, so the reverb is getting bounced into each other, right? That you get like a weird feedback of reverb getting delayed. Even compress it even more, throw it down on the cassette. A pedal like this can change kind of who you are as a guitarist. It can change you as a musician. It can change the way you approach things. And now that I have this pedal and using it in a non-traditional way, I kind of love that as my tone now. And if any of you have been following along on my Instagram or on the shorts I've been posting, having it at the end of the chain is really interesting, right? Right, the last thing before it goes into the amp. You know, all of your modulation, all your reverbs, everything's getting thrown to the meat grinder that is the Deco, right? It chews it up, it spits it out, and gives it a vintage vibe. And using it with a guitar that I normally wouldn't use. Usually when you see the Custom 24, it's like doing like modern stuff. I've been loving this guitar with this pedal. And actually a thing I've been loving to do is learning how to use slime. Okay, so right now I'm going through a Strymon Iridium and I have the Deco after everything. It's the last in the signal chain, okay? Strymon Iridium. On the round channel, I'm using a York Audio Bassman IR, and this is the PRS SE Silver Sky. We have it in stereo, so let's do some fun stereo things. This is where the Deco is just outrageously fun to use. When I had it on the Blues Junior, you couldn't really tell, you know, like, was it flanging in stereo? So cool, right? The types are more pronounced when you're in stereo. This is some. This is inverse. Right, much lower. And then when you go to bounce, or bounces the lag track and puts it into one side, inverted as well. So right now I'm adding a little bit of drive from the Revival trem, and I turned off the tremolo. Inverse in stereo. Delay, which is a 500 millisecond delay on the bounce side, and it's so cool. It ping pongs back and forth when it's on the bounce channel. What? Right? With all these effects, yeah, you don't have like the fine tuning that you would have if it's a dedicated pedal for that. But I don't think that's what this pedal is for. So right now, you hear the reverb from Strymon Flint getting looped, right? So I have a really long decay on the hall reverb on the Strymon Flint, and that's going into the Deco, so that reverb is getting saturated, which I think is very cool, and then it's getting bounced back and forth wide stereo. So again, what you have in the Deco is like, just like I said in the beginning, it's not quite a guitar pedal. It's really more of like a creative tool. It doesn't do what your other pedals would do. It doesn't give you all the little tweaks and modifications that you normally would be able to get out of a dedicated phaser, a dedicated flanger, dedicated chorus, dedicated slapback. The constraints it has on these effects actually forces you to become more creative with it, right? It forces you to think about EQ differently, and there's all sorts of ways to do that in the pedal, but also post. I mean, having in the end of the chain, and I said this about the Blues when I had it in front of the Blues Junior, like it's very cool to have it post time-based effects. It's just something you wouldn't normally hear. There's a couple more features that we gotta go over. So one of them is wide mode. Hold down tape saturation, turn wobble here. Now listen to this. Or the lag track here, and the reference track's gonna be here. And it's only repeating over there. If you hold your foot down, I'm gonna put on a shoe for this, it gives you a flanger of whatever setting you can set up ahead of time. All right, I'm gonna say it one more time. Love the flange. I used it on the intro song in that like middle section, and I panned them hard right, left, and it gives a super swirly sound. It's so cool. Okay, I've gone through all these settings. I'm just gonna tell you how I like to use it. And there's a bunch of different ways actually that I like to use it. One is as a boost for a single coil guitar, right? Put it in cassette mode, and usually right in the middle, so everything's fine. So this is before. It's fine. But even more than that, if you put a little bit of drive before, oh God, it sounds so good. That's just OCD. That is such a good tone. I love it, man. If that's too much, switch it to the classic setting. Perfect. And obviously that works great as like a solo boost, right? We're rocking along, right? And it comes to solo. And if you really want to have a really cool solo, I think adding slapback to a solo is very cool. As guitarists, we need to stop thinking about what do I wish it could do, because it's probably more on you. What are you not doing right? What do you need to fix? The biggest impediment to my progress as a musician and as a writer is I'm not playing enough. I'm not writing enough. It's very rarely the gear. What this pedal offers you is a unique tone for you, what you're doing. It puts you in a decade. It puts you in the classic rock era where they were messing around with tape heads in the studios and creating the sound that we know and love today. Like, this pedal wants you to be creative and wants you to be weird. So try to be weird with it. Put it after a reverb, put it after your other delays. You can also use this pedal in line. So you can go out of your DAW and use the Deco as like a plug-in controller, right? So you can get all these effects and put it on any track you want. You can set it at line level and you could have compression and all these cool effects in your DAW. Is it easier to just use like the J37 plugin from Waves? Yeah, it's a lot easier to do that. You don't have to set anything up. But is it cool that you could do it? Sure. If there's a certain sound that you're really going for, yeah. If you are a MIDI player, this might be the most versatile pedal on your board. This can do so many great sounds and so many different things that you really need a MIDI controller and set up all these presets to get it, like the full use of it live. It's too bad you can only do kind of one of these things at a time. Here's what I wish. That Strymon created an entire, like a board that was just the Deco, right? You could have tape echo, you could have tape flange, you could have tape chorus, you could have all these cool things, but like, what would it be? Like 6 buttons, right? So Strymon, if you're listening, this is what I want. Deco stomp box. Right? So be Deco, go, 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 or whatever you would call it. And that's not the best name. We'll call it something cool though. The way this pedal handles single coil and humbuckers is incredibly different. I mean, the hands are differently in that these are hotter pickups, so. And this is just having the tape saturation. And you see it's sometimes it's a little bit hard. Which is why putting a drive in. say versatile anymore. Versatile, versatile, versatile. It's a very versatile pedal. It reminds me a lot of my Strymon Flint, in which it's a very simple looking pedal, and yet there's many tones you can achieve out of it and many creative tools to help you kind of write something interesting for once in your life. If you want to know more about how to be creative with the pedals that you own, here's a video I did on the Strymon Flint. Thanks for watching.